So how about this for a civics question worth asking? So can a republic take back the right to vote? Well, for most of American history, the right to vote was not treated as something that every citizen automatically had. It was restricted by things like race or sex or property ownership, age, intimidation, and then there was discriminatory laws, and then just basic unequal access. So when people today talk about repealing the 19th Amendment, which is guaranteeing the right to vote based on sex or gender, the question is not just about women's suffrage, because it really comes down to something much bigger, and that is, can a republic take back the right to vote? And while the question can sound a bit extreme, we need to look at it in some context here. It's recently there has been this renewed attention around voices arguing that the 19th Amendment should be repealed. Now, the 19th Amendment says that the right to vote cannot be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex. So, in plain English, government cannot deny someone the right to vote simply because that person is a woman. Now, that amendment was not a small technical change by any stretch. It was the result of generations of organizing, protesting, writing, marching, lobbying, and sacrifice. The women's suffrage movement is often traced back to the Seneca Falls Convention in 1848. This is where activists called for women's political equality, including the right to vote. But the 19th Amendment was not ratified until 1920, and that's more than 70 years of struggle. And even then, the story's it's not complete. Many black women, Native American women, Asian American women, Latino women, and other women of color still faced barriers through discriminatory laws, intimidation, citizenship restrictions, language barriers, and just overall unequal enforcement. So the 19th Amendment was a major victory, but the fight for equal voting access still continued on. So that history matters because voting is not just some type of just a private act, because voting is part of citizenship. It's one of the ways that citizens exercise political power within a republic. And if government can deny voting rights based on sex, race, religion, wealth, or just some other category of identity, then citizenship becomes tiered, it becomes unequal. And so some people become full political members of the community, and others become governed without an equal voice in choosing those who govern them. And that's exactly what constitutional voting amendments were meant to prevent. The 15th Amendment said that the vote could not be denied on basis of race or color or previous condition of servitude. The 19th Amendment said it could not be denied on account of sex. The 24th Amendment banned poll taxes in federal elections. The 26th Amendment lowered the voting age to 18. And each one of these amendments expanded the meaning of political citizenship. So when someone says the 19th Amendment should be repealed, that's not just a debate about history. It's a debate about whether political equality can actually be rolled backward. Now, constitutionally, an amendment can be repealed. We know that because we've had the 21st Amendment, which repealed prohibition, which was created by the 18th Amendment. So yes, in theory, the 19th Amendment could be repealed, but not by a president, not by the Supreme Court, and not by some kind of social media movement, not by a single state, right? Repealing a constitutional amendment would require another constitutional amendment. Under Article 5 of the Constitution, that means it has to be proposed by 2/3 of both houses of Congress or by a convention called by 2/3 of the states, and then ratified by 3/4 of the states, either through their state legislatures or through state ratifying conventions as well. And so that is a very intentionally difficult process. The Constitution can be changed, it can be amended, but it cannot just be changed flippantly or casually. And that difficulty matters because voting rights should not just rise or fall with every temporary political mood. The recent calls to repeal the 19th Amendment are still on the fringe, but they are getting attention. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth actually had produced a social media post of pastors who were calling for the repeal of the 19th Amendment and moving to something that they're referring to as household voting, where the head of the household casts the vote rather than each individual. Now, most Americans are not calling for women to lose the right to vote, but fringe ideas like this still matter when they reveal a deeper civic question. Do we see voting as an individual right, a right of citizenship, or as something that can be filtered through household authority, gender roles, or just political convenience? Now, some arguments, well, the arguments against women's suffrage today are usually framed, with that household voting I brought up, where a family would supposedly have one political voice. They would confer, and then the head of household would actually do the vote. But that idea changes the basic meaning of citizenship. In a republic, citizens are not represented only through a father or a husband or the head of household or the family unit itself. They are citizens as individuals. And that distinction is important, and it really matters, because women do not vote because men allow them to. Women vote because they are citizens. And citizenship is not supposed to depend on being represented by someone else. That does not mean every voter will agree. Well, I voted one way, my wife voted another, so therefore they cancel it out. That means nothing. Nothing at all. Women are not a single political bloc, and neither are men. Citizens disagree across sex, race, religion, region, class, education, political party. That's all normal. And a republic does not require citizens to think alike. We don't have groupthink in that regard. It does require citizens to have an equal right to participate. So, can a republic take back the right to vote? Legally, the Constitution can be amended. But civically, we should understand what that would mean. Repealing the 19th Amendment would not simply change just an election rule. It would reject a century of constitutional recognition that women are equal political citizens. The real civics question through all of this is not whether every idea from the fringe or on the internet or from extremist groups, if all of those deserve some type of, running around and panicking. It's not like Bikini Bottom's on fire, because it does not deserve that. The real question is whether citizens understand that voting rights were not handed down as gifts. Voting rights were fought for. They were written into the Constitution, and they have to be understood and defended by every generation. That's why calls for the repeal of the 19th Amendment are important, why they matter. And this is another important civics question worth asking, but also understanding. Feel free to share this, please. You may not have heard of this before, but I guess in the spaces that I inhabit online, I see this popping up more and more. So please do what you can and share this so we can all practice civics responsibly. Take care.